The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed under the soft golden light of 1,000 crystals. Tall alien figures from every corner of the galaxy filled the curved rows of seats. Their robes shimmered, their voices echoed. This was the heart of power in the galaxy, the place where decisions that shaped 1,000 worlds were made. At the center, on a raised platform, sat the High Chancellor, a towering being of blue scales and black horns. Around him, ministers and ambassadors whispered among themselves, their laughter rising like ripples of water. Today's single quotes S topic was Earth. They dare to send a request to join us? One ambassador snorted, his 3 eyes narrowing in disbelief. Another let out a sharp laugh, shaking his head. Earth? That little dust planet? Still crawling on its surface? Still burning rocks for fuel? Primitive, the High Chancellor announced, his voice smooth and mocking. Let us all agree, humans are nothing but a minor annoyance. A backwater species with no place in our council. The laughter grew louder, crueler. But then, the great doors at the far end of the chamber creaked. At first, no one noticed. The sound was soft, just a low groan of metal. But then it grew, louder and louder, until the entire room fell silent. All eyes turned toward the doors. They slammed open with a deafening crash. A single figure stood in the doorway. It was a human. He wore no armor, no weapon, just a plain black suit and boots that echoed on the polished floor as he stepped forward. His hands were at his sides. His expression was calm. But his eyes were sharp, cold, and unafraid. The guards nearest to him moved quickly, raising their energy spears. Stop where you are. One barked, but the man kept walking. The spears flared to life, and then, with a strange crackle, went dark. The guards stared at their useless weapons in confusion. Who are you? Demanded the High Chancellor, rising from his seat. How dare you enter this chamber uninvited? The human stopped at the center of the room and slowly looked around. I am from Earth, he said. His voice was quiet but carried through the air like thunder. And I am here to correct your mistake. Gasps ran through the chamber. No one spoke. Finally, one ambassador scoffed, trying to regain control. You have no right to be here. You are nothing. Your planet is nothing. The man's lips curved into a faint smile. You called Earth nothing, he said. You called US primitive. You laughed at us, but you forgot something. He paused, letting his words sink into the silence. You forgot we were watching. The council members exchanged uneasy looks. The air in the room felt heavier now, colder. Then, without warning, the floor trembled. It was subtle at first, a faint vibration beneath their feet. But it grew stronger, making the crystal lights above sway and flicker. Dust fell from the high ceilings. What is that? Someone shouted. A loud, metallic roar came from outside the massive windows that lined the chamber. And then, they saw. Ita's shadow moved across the stars, huge, black, and silent. It was a ship, but no one in the council had ever seen a ship like this before. It was darker than space itself, its edges sharp and predatory. It glided toward the chamber, blotting out the galaxy beyond. The ground shook harder as the ship crashed through the council's outer defense ring, tearing their mighty barriers apart like paper. A long, deep crack formed in the chamber wall, as pieces of glowing debris fell outside. Activate the defenses, screamed the High Chancellor, but nothing happened. The chamber's weapons, shields, alarms, all dead. The human spoke again, his voice calm over the chaos. Meet Earth's fleet. The council erupted into panic. Ministers and ambassadors scrambled to their feet, shouting and pushing each other, some trying to run for the exits, but the exits sealed shut. The human raised his hand, and the entire room fell silent again. You thought Earth was weak, he said, his eyes sweeping over the frightened faces. You thought we were harmless, but we watched. We waited, and now, We act. One ambassador found his courage and stood. You dare threaten the Galactic Council? He stammered. We have armies. Fleets. We have ruled these stars for 10,000 years. The human turned his gaze to him and spoke softly. Then you should have ruled them better. Outside, more black ships appeared, dozens of them, each larger and more terrifying than the last. They moved with impossible speed and precision, cutting through the Council's mighty fleets without resistance. The High Chancellor clung to his podium, his voice trembling. What do you want? He asked. The human stared at him. I want you to understand, he replied, that Earth is not yours to mock. We are not yours to control. We are not primitive. The Council fell to their knees, one by one, realizing they had no choice. Please, one whispered. We didn't know. The human's expression hardened. No, he said. You never cared to know. You only cared to laugh. A hush spread over the chamber as the largest ship outside began to glow. Its cannons charged, painting the room in a red light. The Council trembled as a deep hum filled the air. Mercy, the High Chancellor begged. We beg for mercy. The human tilted his head slightly. Did you show mercy to our colonies when you enslaved them? He asked. The Chancellor lowered his head in shame. No, he admitted. The man raised his hand, and the glow outside faded. The ship stopped firing. Instead, one by one, the black ships lowered, landing around the chamber. Their ramps opened, and more humans in black suits stepped out, calm and silent. The first man spoke again. Earth will not destroy you today, he announced. But you will no longer rule us, or anyone else. The galaxy belongs to all, and now Earth will make sure of it. One of the ambassadors dared to ask, why? Why didn't you reveal yourselves before? The human's eyes glinted coldly. Because, he said, you were not ready to listen, but you are now. With that, he walked to the center of the room, placed a small silver emblem on the podium, a circle with a single star in the middle, and turned to leave. As he reached the door, he stopped and looked back over his shoulder. Earth doesn't bow to the galaxy, he said softly. The galaxy bows to Earth. And then he was gone. The Council remained on their knees as the humans filed out of the chamber, their black fleet rising once more into the stars. The room was quiet now, the air heavy with fear and respect. No one dared to laugh again, and above the wreckage of their once proud chamber, Earth's flag rose high, a quiet promise that things had changed forever. From that day on, the galaxy remembered. Earth had been watching, Earth had been waiting, and Earth had arrived. The Galactic Council's chamber was still echoing with whispers when the human stood at the center. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. He simply stared at the rows of aliens looking down at him from their seats. The High Chancellor rose slowly, his long blue fingers tightening around the edge of his podium. His deep, echoing voice filled the room. You have no authority here, the Chancellor declared. Leave now, before you are removed. The human lifted his eyes, meeting the Chancellor's gaze. I didn't come here for your permission, he said quietly. The guards at the edge of the room advanced, their energy spears glowing. The chamber doors locked behind them with a loud clang. You have insulted this council for the last time. One of the guards barked. Kneel now, human, or die where you stand. The human looked at the guard and tilted his head slightly, as if amused. You should put those weapons down, he said. The guards laughed. Fool, do you think you can? Before the guard could finish his sentence, the tip of his spear sparked, then went dark. A strange humming sound rose from the human's direction. All at once, every weapon in the room went dead. The guards stared at their useless spears in shock. They pressed buttons on their wrists, trying to activate their armor shields, but nothing happened. What did you do? The High Chancellor demanded, his voice a little less steady now. The human didn't answer. He took another step forward. Stop him. The Chancellor shouted. The guards rushed in, trying to surround him. But the human raised one hand, and suddenly, their bodies froze mid-step. They stood like statues, their eyes wide with terror. One of the ambassadors gasped. "Telepath?" The human shook his head. "No," he replied softly. "Just prepared." He lowered his hand, and the guards collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. The room was silent again. The human slowly turned, his eyes scanning the council. "You have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years," he began, his voice calm but sharp. "You decided who was strong and who was weak, who would live and who would die." He paused. "And you decided Earth was weak." An ambassador with shimmering silver skin spoke up, his voice trembling. We observed your planet. We saw how you fought among yourselves. We thought you were unworthy." The human's mouth curved into the faintest smile. "Yes," he said. "That's what we wanted you to think." Whispers broke out in the chamber. One alien slammed his fist on his table. "Lies," he shouted. "Earth doesn't even have faster than light travel. You send crude ships, you fire bullets." The human cut him off. "We sent what you were meant to see," he said. The alien blinked in confusion. The human took a deep breath and spoke louder now, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "While you were watching us, we were watching you. Every planet, every fleet, every secret. And while you laughed, we built." The High Chancellor's claws clicked nervously against the podium. "Built what?" he asked cautiously. The human's eyes glinted coldly. "Justice," he said. A low rumble shook the chamber. At first, it seemed like an earthquake. But then the walls trembled, and the great windows darkened. An enormous shadow passed over the chamber, blotting out the light. The human's fleet had arrived. Dozens, no, hundreds of black ships hovered above the council city. Their design was nothing like anything the galaxy had seen before. Sleek, silent, predatory. One of the council members gasped as the largest ship turned slowly, revealing massive cannons on its underbelly. What are those?" she whispered. The human glanced toward the window. "Those," he said simply, "are what you created." The High Chancellor's voice cracked as he demanded, "What do you want?" The human turned his eyes back to him, his calm expression never wavering. "You took from us," he said. "You enslaved our colonies. You sabotaged our progress. You murdered our people in secret wars and called it balance." He stepped closer to the Chancellor's podium. "You thought we wouldn't notice," he continued. "But we did. We noticed. Everything. We recorded everything, and we waited." "Waited for what?" Another alien dared to ask. The human's eyes narrowed. "For the day you'd stop laughing," he said. The Chancellor swallowed hard. His usual arrogance was gone now, replaced with something else. Fear. You can't do this," he stammered. We are the Galactic Council." The human leaned slightly forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Not anymore," he whispered. The guards on the floor began to stir again, but none of them dared to rise. None dared to touch their weapons. The human turned, his boots clicking. Softly as he walked toward the great window, he looked out at the black fleet waiting in the dark sky. He raised a hand and made a small gesture. The largest ship moved closer, its engines roaring like thunder. Red light flared from its cannons, and the entire chamber glowed crimson. "No!" the Chancellor cried out. "Stop, please. We surrender." The human didn't look at him. "You don't get to surrender," he said flatly. He turned back to the council. "You get to kneel." One by one, the council members fell to their knees, their heads bowed in silence. The human walked slowly back to the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. "Earth does not ask for permission," he said. "And we do not ask for forgiveness. From this day on, you serve the galaxy, not yourselves, and Earth will make sure of it." One of the ambassadors looked up, his voice shaking. "Why reveal yourselves now?" He asked. "Why not rule from the shadows?" The human's face softened, just a little. "Because," he said, "there comes a time when even shadows must step into the light." The Chancellor's voice broke as he asked, "And what happens if we disobey?" The human glanced toward the massive fleet outside. The cannons flared for a moment, then dimmed again. "You won't," he said simply. The Chancellor nodded weakly, unable to meet the human's gaze. The human lowered his hand, and the sealed chamber doors opened again. He began to walk away, but stopped just before reaching the exit. He turned one last time, his eyes scanning the broken, silent council. "You called us intruders," he said softly, "but you were wrong. We've always been here, watching, waiting, preparing." He walked out, leaving behind a chamber full of kneeling rulers and a sky full of black ships. The galaxy would never laugh at Earth again, and far above, among the stars, the human fleet waited, silent, patient, unstoppable, for Earth had arrived. The galaxy would never forget the day the intruder became the master. The air in the council chamber was heavy. The human's footsteps had faded, but his presence lingered like a storm cloud. The council members still knelt, their heads bowed, afraid to speak. Finally, the High Chancellor raised his eyes. His hands trembled as he gripped the podium. The human was gone, but the black ship still hovered above, dark and silent, waiting for a signal. Then the doors opened again. The same human walked back in, his black suit unwrinkled, his expression as calm and sharp as before. He stopped in the center of the room. "Get up," he said. One by one, the council members stood, though none dared to look him in the eye. The human's gaze swept over them all before he spoke. "Do you know why I'm here?" he asked. No one answered. He raised his voice slightly, letting the sound cut through the silence. "Do you know," he repeated, "why Earth finally stepped into your chamber?" The Chancellor swallowed and managed to speak. "Because we underestimated you," he guessed. The human let out a faint, humorless laugh. "No," he said, "you did more than underestimate us. You violated us." The words hit the room like a slap. The council members shifted uncomfortably, avoiding his gaze. "You enslaved our colonies," the human continued, his voice steady. "You sabotaged our ships. You poisoned our leaders. You erased our people from records. And then, when we came to you for help, you laughed." He turned his eyes toward the High Chancellor. "You laughed," he repeated, his tone darkening. One of the ambassadors, her silver skin glinting under the lights, found her voice. "There must be some mistake," she said carefully. "We have no record of such actions." "No evidence?" The human's eyes narrowed. "No evidence?" He echoed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black disc. He placed it on the podium, and it began to glow, projecting a hologram into the air. Scenes of horror flickered before the council. Human colonies burning, ships being torn apart in ambush, children taken from their homes by alien soldiers. Every act, every word, every order was recorded, with the council's own symbol stamped on each document. The ambassadors gasped. Some looked away. Others stared in shock, their faces pale. "You destroyed entire cities," the human said quietly. "You called it population control. You assassinated our scientists and called it containment. You cut off our trade routes and called it sanctions." He stepped closer to the Chancellor, his voice growing colder. "You called it order." The Chancellor tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Finally, another ambassador broke the silence. We did what was necessary," he stammered. Humans were spreading too fast. You were unpredictable." The human stared at him, his expression unreadable. "Yes," he said. "We are unpredictable," his tone sharpened. "And that is why you lost." The room fell silent again. Outside, the black fleet shifted, their engines humming louder. Red light glowed faintly from their underbellies. One of the younger ministers, his green skin shining with sweat, spoke up in desperation. What do you want from us? He asked. The human's gaze swept over them all before he answered. Justice, he said simply. The Chancellor shook his head weakly. We cannot undo what has been done, he admitted. The human tilted his head slightly. No, he agreed. You can't. He looked around the chamber, his voice now louder, sharper, echoing through the walls. But you can pay for it. The Chancellor's eyes widened. How? He whispered. The human took a deep breath and stepped closer to the podium. You will dissolve this council, he said. Every law you wrote to serve yourselves will be erased. Every planet you enslaved will be freed. Every world you silenced will have a voice. He paused, then added, and Earth will oversee it all. The council members looked at one another in horror. You want to rule the galaxy? One of them asked, his voice trembling. The human's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. No, he said. We don't want to rule it. We want to fix it. He glanced at the Chancellor. You failed, he said simply. The Chancellor closed his eyes, finally understanding. Double quotes, yes. He admitted. The human nodded slowly. You have one choice left, he said quietly. Do what I've said, or be removed. For a moment, the council chamber was completely silent. Then, one by one, the members began to nod, some out of fear, some out of shame. But all of them understood there was no alternative. The Chancellor raised his trembling hands and said the words no one thought they would ever hear. The Galactic Council is dissolved, he announced. The human gave a faint nod. Good, he said. He turned to leave, but the silver-skinned ambassador called out to him. Wait, she said. He stopped and looked back at her. She hesitated before asking, why didn't you destroy us? You have the power. You could have ended us right here. The human studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice softer now, almost sad. Because, he said, if we become like you, then we've already lost. He slipped the black disc back into his pocket and walked toward the doors. As he passed the guards, who still stood frozen in fear, he spoke one last time, his voice carrying through the chamber. Remember this day, he said. Not because Earth arrived, but because we finally stopped pretending we were powerless. The doors closed behind him with a soft click. Above, the Black Fleet moved silently into position, their engines rumbling like distant thunder, and the galaxy, for the first time in 1,000 years, began to hope that the cruelty of the old council was over. Hope that the darkness could be undone. Hope that someone, even humans, could bring justice to the stars. The human disappeared into the shadows, beyond the chamber, but his words stayed behind, and the galaxy would never forget the day Earth accused its rulers and won. The council chamber was quiet now, though the silence was heavy and full of fear. The human stood at the center again, his hands clasped behind his back. He had not raised his voice, but every word he spoke still hung in the air like a blade above. Their heads. The High Chancellor swallowed hard. His claws tapped nervously on the podium. You have made your point, he said, his voice shaking. The council admits its crimes. We surrender to your demands. The human didn't move. His expression didn't change. I'm not here for your surrender, he said simply. The Chancellor frowned. Then, what do you want? The human slowly raised his head, his cold eyes locking on the Chancellor's. I want you to see, he said. Before the Chancellor could ask what he meant, the chamber lights flickered. The floor began to hum. It started softly, just a faint vibration beneath their feet. But it grew stronger with every passing second. The great crystal chandeliers above them swayed. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. The walls groaned as though under pressure. One ambassador stood, his voice sharp with fear. What is happening? The human didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his hand slightly. The great windows lining the chamber shimmered, and the dark curtains pulled back, revealing the stars outside. At first, all the council members saw was darkness. But then, a shadow moved, and another dot, and then another. The stars began to vanish, one by one, swallowed by something massive and black. It was a ship. No, it was many ships. They moved like predators through the void, silent and deliberate. Their shapes were sharp, alien even to the council, their hulls darker than space itself. One of the ministers gasped. What are those?" The human's mouth curved into the faintest smile. "That," he said softly, "is Earth's fleet, the largest ship, a monstrous black shape with glowing red lines along its hull, glided closer. Its engines roared, shaking the chamber like a quake. The council members instinctively backed away from the window, their eyes wide. With horror, the High Chancellor gripped the podium and shouted, "Activate the planetary shields, now!" But nothing happened. One of the guards slammed his fist on a control panel, but the lights on it were dead. "Our systems, they're offline," he cried. The human tilted his head almost mockingly. "Of course they are," he said. The fleet outside moved into formation, surrounding the council's mighty city, like a black storm. Then the largest ship lowered itself until it hovered directly over the chamber. Its size was unimaginable, so large it blotted out the stars and half the skyline. And then it began to descend. The ground shook harder, walls cracked, crystals shattered and fell from the ceiling. The roar of engines grew deafening, drowning out the panicked cries of the council. "Stop this!" The High Chancellor shouted at the human. "You'll destroy us all." The human's eyes narrowed. "That," he said, "is the idea." With a low rumble, the massive ship smashed through the council's outer defenses, huge spires of metal and energy, as if they were made of glass. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The floor split in places. A heavy support beam crashed down just feet from where the Chancellor stood. The ambassadors scrambled to stay on their feet. Some covered their heads. Others dropped to the ground, begging for mercy. The High Chancellor raised his hands, his voice breaking. "Please, we surrender. Stop." The human didn't even look at him. Instead, he took a step toward the window and spoke, not loudly, but every word carried. "You built your power on the backs of weaker worlds," he said. "You laughed while others suffered. You called us primitive while we learned how to break you." The massive ship outside opened its lower bay, revealing rows of glowing cannons. The light from them bathed the entire chamber in a deep, blood-red glow. One ambassador fell to his knees. "We beg you, mercy." The human finally turned to face them, his eyes cold and sharp. "Did you show mercy to us?" he asked quietly. "No." One answered. He stepped closer to the Chancellor. "You crushed our colonies," he said. "You poisoned our people. You enslaved our children. And when we asked for help, you laughed." His voice dropped to a whisper. "You will not laugh again." A deep hum filled the air as the cannons charged. Energy crackled through the sky, and the chamber walls began to glow from the heat. The High Chancellor fell to his knees, his head bowed. "Please," he murmured. "We were wrong. We didn't know." The human looked down at him, his face calm but unyielding. "No," he said. "You never cared to know." For a moment, it seemed like the fleet would fire, and the entire chamber would be reduced to ash. But then the human raised his hand, and the glowing cannons dimmed, the roar of the engine softened, leaving only the sound of the council's heavy breathing. "You live," the human said at last, "but not as rulers, not anymore." He turned his back on the Chancellor and walked toward the center of the room. "You will rebuild everything you destroyed," he continued. "You will free every world you enslaved. You will answer to the galaxy, not the other way around." He stopped and looked over his shoulder. "And Earth will make sure you do." The council members slowly raised their eyes. Some nodded weakly, others simply stared. Stunned into silence, the human slipped a small silver device from his pocket and placed it on the floor. A holographic emblem appeared, a circle with a single star in the middle. "This is the new order," he announced. "Remember it, obey it, or we return." He tapped the device, and the symbol burned itself into the floor, leaving a faint glowing marked dot. Then he walked toward the doors as the black fleet began to ascend back into the sky. One of the ministers dared to call after him. "Why? Why didn't you destroy us?" The human paused in the doorway. "Because," he said without turning, "we build where you only destroy." With that, he stepped into the shadows and was gone. Above, the massive ship rose higher and higher, its red lights fading into the black of space. The council chamber was a ruin, cracked and broken, but it still stood. And in the center of the floor, glowing faintly, was Earth's emblem, a silent reminder that the galaxy had changed forever. The laughter of the council was gone now, and in its place was fear and respect. For Earth had crashed through their defenses, their pride and their power, and left nothing but the truth behind. The galaxy would never forget the day the council fell, and Earth rose. The council chamber was still shaking from the crash. Dust floated in the air, and the once grand walls now had cracks running like spider webs. The great windows, once sparkling with starlight, were dark and cracked. The council members were gathered in small groups, whispering urgently. Fear filled the room like a thick fog. The High Chancellor tried to regain control. His voice was loud but trembling. "Everyone, calm down. This is a crisis, but we must think clearly." He ordered, but no one listened. The ambassadors and ministers looked toward the massive black ships hanging over the city, the ships that had shattered their defenses and silenced their weapons. A young ambassador with bright green skin was shaking. "This is impossible," she whispered. "How can Earth have so many ships? How can they be so advanced?" An older ambassador with pale blue skin grabbed her arm. "Do not speak so loudly," he warned. "If they hear you, they may punish us more." But it was too late. At that moment, the main chamber doors burst open with a crash. Humans in black suits entered, calm and confident. The guards scrambled to block them, raising their energy spears. But once again, the weapons fizzled and died. The humans walked forward without hesitation, their faces calm but serious. One human stepped forward, his voice echoing through the room. "Council members," he said, "your time of laughter is over." The council members froze. The humans' eyes scanned the room. "You thought Earth was weak. You thought we would never fight back. You thought we were primitive." A murmur rose from the crowd. "But we watched," the human continued. "We learned. We prepared." The large black ships outside shifted, engines humming like a rising storm. The Chancellor's face went pale. "We have fleets," he said, trying to sound brave. "Our fleets will crush yours." The human smiled slightly. "Your fleets are broken. Your weapons are dead. Your defenses lie in ruins." Suddenly, alarms began to blare, flashing red lights everywhere. The black ships outside began to glow with fierce red energy. The humans raised their hands, and the alarms stopped. Silence returned, heavy and tense. The humans spoke again. "We do not want to destroy you. We want justice." "But," an ambassador began. "No buts," the human interrupted. "You betrayed us. You enslaved us. You lied to the galaxy." He looked at the Chancellor. "You will answer for that." The Chancellor fell to his knees. "Mercy, please," he begged. The human's eyes were cold. "Mercy is earned, not given." One by one, council members began to fall on their knees. The human's voice softened. "We did not come here to rule. We came here to stop you." Outside, the Black Fleet's engines pulsed, a warning and a promise. The council's panic grew as the reality of their defeat settled in. The human turned to the chamber doors. "This is your chance," he said. Make it count. And with that, the humans began to take control, their presence calm but unstoppable. The Council had lost their power. Earth had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council chamber was still trembling from the shock of the Black Fleet's arrival. The air was thick with fear and confusion. The Council members sat quietly, their eyes fixed on the human standing calmly before them. The human's presence was calm, but his words carried weight. "You think you know Earth," he said, "but you only know what we let you see." One of the ambassadors, her silver skin glowing faintly, spoke up. "What do you mean? What are you hiding?" The human smiled faintly. "For centuries, Earth was quiet. Primitive, as you called us. Backward, but we were watching, listening, learning." He paused and looked around the chamber. "Every battle you fought, every plan you made, every secret you kept." He pulled a small device from his pocket and placed it on the podium. It began to glow, projecting holograms into the air. Images appeared, star maps, weapons designs, secret meetings, hidden fleets. "This is what you never saw," the human said. "We hid our true strength. We let you believe we were weak." The High Chancellor's claws tapped nervously. "But why?" he asked. "Why hide?" The human's eyes gleamed. "Because patience is power." He pointed to the holograms. "We studied you. We found your weaknesses, your divisions, your lies." The Council members whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief. The human continued. "When the time was right, we built our fleet. The ships you saw today are just the beginning." A younger ambassador looked up, her voice trembling. "How many ships do you have?" The human's face darkened. "More than you can imagine. Silent, hidden, waiting." The Council's panic grew. "How can we stop you?" The Chancellor asked, his voice cracking. The human smiled coldly. "You can't." He stepped forward. "We are not primitive. We are not weak." He raised his hand, and the holograms vanished. "Earth has arrived." The Council sat in stunned silence. The human turned to leave. "Remember this day," he said, "not because Earth attacked, but because Earth finally showed its true face." As he exited, the Council members looked at each other, fear and respect in their eyes. Outside, the Black Fleet hovered, ready for whatever came next. The galaxy had changed forever. The Galactic Council was broken. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the black ships. Waiting outside, the Council members sat in defeat, their heads bowed, faces pale with shame and fear. The human who had led Earth's charge stood in the center once more. His eyes were calm but full of steel. "You have ruled through fear and lies for too long," he said quietly. The High Chancellor looked up weakly. "Then, what is your judgment?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Humans stepped forward. "Your judgment is simple," he said. "You will dismantle the Council. You will free every enslaved world. You will return every stolen piece of technology." He paused. "And you will face trial for your crimes." Murmurs broke out among the Council members. "But who will judge?" "US," an ambassador asked, his voice trembling. The human's expression hardened. "Earth will," he replied. The Council gasped. "You have the power?" The Chancellor asked. "We do," the human said. "We built it while you laughed. We united while you fought. We prepared while you ignored us." He looked around the chamber, his voice rising. "This galaxy belongs to all its people, not just a few greedy rulers." The High Chancellor's shoulders slumped. "We accept," he said quietly. The human nodded. "Double quotes good," he said. He turned toward the doors but stopped. "Remember," he said, "this is your last chance to change. Fail and Earth's fleet will return, not to ask, but to take." With that, he walked out. The black ships rose into the sky, their engines a low rumble that echoed across the city. The Council chamber was left empty, but forever changed. News of Earth's arrival and judgment spread across the stars. Planets whispered hope for the first time in centuries. The galaxy had been ruled by fear for too long. Now a new order was rising, one where justice, fairness, and strength walked together. And Earth led the way. The laughter of the council was gone. In its place, a new sound filled the stars, the sound of hope. The stars above the Galactic Council city were quiet again. But the silence was no longer full of arrogance. It was full of change. The Black Fleet still hovered in orbit, its glowing red lines visible even from the surface. Everyone below knew Earth was watching. The council chamber, once a place of mockery and control, now felt small. The council members stood in a circle, waiting. None dared sit on their thrones. The doors opened with a low hiss. The human commander stepped inside, flanked by two more humans in black suits. His boots echoed on the cracked marble floor as he walked to the center. He stood there silently, letting the weight of his presence settle on them. Finally, the High Chancellor spoke. His voice was quiet, stripped of its former pride. "You have won," he admitted. "The council belongs to you." The human shook his head slightly. "No," he said. "It belongs to the galaxy now." He looked at the circle of alien rulers. "You thought power was your right," he continued. "You thought others were beneath you. You thought fear would keep you in control." His voice grew sharper. "But now you understand. Fear can also come for you." The Chancellor lowered his gaze. What happens now?" he asked. The human's eyes swept the room. "You will step down," he said. "You will leave this chamber. You will return to your worlds. And you will serve your people, not yourselves." One ambassador spoke up, his voice shaking. "And who? Who will lead?" The human held up a small silver emblem, a circle with a star in the center, and placed it on the floor. "This," he said. The emblem glowed, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared above it. "From today forward," the human explained, "there will be no council of rulers. Instead, every world will have a voice. Every planet will have a vote. Every species will have a place." The hologram shifted, showing empty seats waiting to be filled. "This is the new order," the human said. "And Earth will make sure it stands." Another ambassador spoke, his tone still wary. "And if someone tries to take power again?" The human's gaze hardened. "Then Earth's fleet will return," he said simply. "And it will not be as gentle next time." Silence filled the room. Outside, the Black Fleet began to shift, forming a protective ring around the planet. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. The High Chancellor finally stepped down from his podium. I understand," he said. The human gave a faint nod. "Good," he replied. He turned to leave but stopped at the doorway. He looked over his shoulder, his voice calm and clear. "The galaxy will remember this day," he said. "Not because Earth came to destroy, but because we came to build." The council members watched as he walked out of the chamber, the doors closing behind him. Above the city, the Black Fleet slowly ascended, fading into the stars. For the first time in thousands of years, hope began to spread from world to world. Carried on whispers and winds, carried on the memory of the day Earth rose. The galaxy was no longer a playground for the powerful. It was home to everyone. And at its heart, Earth stood watch, quiet, strong, unshakable. The new order had begun, and the stars would never forget who brought it.